Rightio, let's get
Where do you want to
stuck
start?
in.
Bottom of the ladder or top?
Always start at the bottom.
Okay. West Coast. Who captains them next year?
Good question. Are you going to give me the answer?
I'm going to ask you first, or we're
Okay.
going to have a discussion about it.
I think who captains them next year? I think they're going to change the captain.
I agree.
And I think it'll be the controversial recruit from the Tigers.
Do you mean Baker? Or do you mean Graham?
No, I don't mean Graham.
You mean Baker?
I mean Baker.
I agree with you. And this is something that I think he has been so good.
Yep.
So good for them. He went over there, out of sight, out of mind. And I said this earlier, there are players who play really good footy. And because so many people, and we are Melbourne-centric at different times, Gerard, living in Melbourne and having those teams under our nose every week, we sometimes don't get the full appreciation of certain players. I don't think people are fully appreciating the year that Liam Baker is having. And a team that's struggling, his point in his career and trying to lead, I think that would be a good call.
I'm not sure they excelled in the way they got him by giving away the draft pick.
No.
But that said, they did it. They've got him. He's excelled. To me, he's tossing the coin next year.
And I'm not a draft pick guy, Gerard. I think that too many times in the AFL, we hold on to particular draft picks due to the number rather than look at the sum of everything. And I think West Coast looked at it and said, Liam Baker is someone who we need to at our footy club. He wants to come home. We haven't got a great deal of leverage, but let's do it and bite off a little more than we probably should or others have in the past.
Yep.
But I think it's worked. And I think that would be a really good call to give him an opportunity for a year or two. Allow Duggan, Oscar Allen looks like he's going to be probably elsewhere. Allow Duggan to make sure he plays consistent football.
Yeah.
And Baker can do that under that type of thing.
I don't think they'll get much better player, but if they can, if he can toss a coin and still play this well, that's a win-win.
Hey, regardless of the rest of the season, is 2025 a success for Richmond? Regardless if they were to lose every game.
No, I couldn't care less about win-losses for Richmond. I think that and some Richmond supporters will disagree with this because, I keep saying he's been this and the coach has done this and done that. What I think they've done is they had a plan. They could see Tassie coming. They could see guys who, played in premierships, and they saw an opportunity to get good trade bait for them or good picks for them and then reset. Bottom line is they knew they were going down the bottom. They orchestrated going down the bottom.
Yes.
And I think they will pop much more quickly and much more easily with the players that they've got. I haven't seen some of the guys. I haven't played.
No.
But I've seen Jonty Fall. I really like Jonty Fall.
Yes.
We know Layla or Layla.
Yep.
He's going to be a great player once that body gets going. Even if they got 50%, 100% right and 50% right, they are going to have the basis of a really good side going forward.
I think they have done it as well as any club, honestly.
Yep.
In recent times when it comes to the draft, they didn't lose any player who was going to be someone that they were going to cop any type of criticism for. And they were in a perfect situation. When you win 3 flags in recent times, it takes a lot of pressure off the fan base and the corporate commercial side of
course it does.
to be able to do it. And we have seen North Melbourne's an example, haven't won a flag for, 25, 26 years, who were there or thereabouts, played in a couple of prelims, but because they didn't get the ultimate, and this is rightly or wrongly, because they didn't get the ultimate, there's a perception of clubs in that particular way when they have to rebuild. Richmond did it at the perfect time.
They did.
And it's a major success. And winning the games that they have actually is just a triple tick that they didn't expect.
I think most Tiger fans, in some respects, were happy after round one.
Yeah, fair enough.
There were plenty of good judges saying
Agreed.
they wouldn't win a game. They won one after being 40-odd points down. They gave it to the Blues, and they've had the Blues ever since. So it's a win-win there for Richmond supporters. It's not going to happen overnight. It'll take a few more years, but they've got a good foundation.
The head of the Tasmanian game, as you alluded to. North Melbourne.
Yes.
Should they be chasing Lek Alir from the Giants defender?
Well, they definitely need another defender. I think, unfortunately, Griffin Logue hasn't worked for them as yet. He's still a young man, and I wouldn't be surprised if they try him in the forward line next season. They need to readdress that back line. Dawson was okay on the weekend, but they still need some polish down there. Ross Glendenning, you only get once a millennium. They're due for another one. So
time.
see if they can find another Ross Glendenning. Lekalia, I think there'll be 3 or 4 or 5, or
Clubs.
even 6 clubs chasing him.
Absolutely.
And North Melbourne would be one that could do well to land him.
I think that the way they play their football at different times has allowed, and I think Horney has touched on this a little bit with their game style, has allowed every now and then North Melbourne defenders to have the rub of the green. I think Carlton's a perfect example of that. The way they defended the ground against Carlton for 2 quarters meant that the forward line at Carlton had no real say in it. So it was quite easy or easier for North Melbourne defenders, which I don't think is the right way to be able to propel themselves up the ladder. I love them inside 50. Their midfield's growing and developing, and they've still got a bit of work to do. But I think if they just add, you don't need to add superstars, because if your midfield is able to get on top, it makes life a lot easier in defensive 50. And I think the Bulldogs, while there's a question mark there, show that at different times. I think Adelaide as well, although Adelaide's young defenders are most certainly developing at a pretty good rate. But if you're able to just add a little bit, I think Lekalia is a really nice player for North Melbourne. But as you said, it's hot competition.
We know they got Common, and he's going to be a terrific player.
Yeah,
but
tough.
Just take a line out of the loss of Aliir from Sydney and the addition of Aliir to Port Adelaide.
Yeah.
I mean, he turned them into a near premiership side along with 1 or 2 others. But that was exactly the chess piece that they needed. Or to use Kingy's lingo, the magnet that they needed.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it put a hole in the defence of the Swans, even though Aliir had a pretty ordinary year. But people have ordinary years.
They do.
And Port Adelaide was smart enough to say, we can see the upside here, even if Sydney can't.
And it worked. And on this, the next one's around St Kilda. I'm a monstrous Zach Bailey fan.
Yeah.
Should the Saints, now he's a free agent at the end of next year, should they be starting right now? Should St Kilda throw everything they can at Zach Bailey?
How much? These are St Kilda dollars, so
1.3, 1.4.
Okay. 1.3, 1.4.
And say you are a full-time midfielder.
Well, he's not at the moment, is he?
No, he's not.
No, he's a wingman.
And the depth that Brisbane have, I
wing
can
half
see
forward,
why.
but mainly, wing this year?
Wing this year.
Yeah. Speaking of which, gents, Jack Crisp should be a front runner for one of the All-Australian wing spots. Yeah, we're on the Jack Crisp bandwagon. Let's get him over the line.
Yeah,
let's get him up and about this year. He's due. He's owed one.
If we had 23, he would be
You're correct.
He would have a bigger chance.
Wait till Swanee gets back. I'm going to work him on that one.
Good. Is Zach Bailey the right guy for St Kilda? A lot of clubs are going to have a crack at him.
Zach Bailey's the right bloke for every club.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
I agree. And I think the selling point is the midfield, if you ask St Kilda. So I like that. Saints fans.
Right, let's get back to some of your questions, because we're going to be here till 4 in the morning.
Should Melbourne start the rebuild or double down on their current talent? How should they approach the back end of this year in the off-season?
Melbourne need to rebuild to a degree. They're going to have to, I think, look to the trade and look to get some more talent in. I think they've done pretty well already in the talent ID department. Windsor is not in the side at the present time. Langford is another one, and Lindsay is another one. So they got 3, and I'd be staggered if Windsor doesn't come back in the next week or 2 and go into the middle to give him a trial, because that's what they need to do. They need to regenerate that middle. But, yeah, definitely a little bit of a rebuild.
Little tweak.
But not much. If they get it right, they could rebound pretty quickly. Got to do it while Stephen May is still capable. And I reckon that they're going to, at some stage, trial Van Rooyen in the back line.
Defender. Well, the issue with Melbourne's forward line is that outside of Malcolm, they are players like defenders. Petty, another one.
Here's a question just on that before we move on. Would Melbourne woes be fixed with a quality forward coach like Dermott?
No. And I say that because
it'd be fixed with a quality player like Dermott.
If you're able to get a quality forward, now having Dermott or a great forwards coach there is obviously going to be an advantage, but you need to have the play. You need to have the players. Melbourne have copped a bit of stick for their ball use at different times inside 50, but I think Jake Malcolm, who is a very high IQ footballer, his leading patterns and the way they were able to find him in the last 2 weeks suggests that if they had someone that had a bit more forward craft, a bit bigger, then maybe the delivery inside 50 isn't going to be as disappointing as it has been at different times. So
I think their delivery inside forward 50 might need to be addressed. But that's why those young kids are going to help.
But it probably balances up, right? If you have a forward inside 50, and Melksham's been great. Hey, if you were Essendon, would you let Draper leave and get that first round compensation pick?
How high would it be?
Well, what are they right about now? We're talking. They've already got 2 because they've got Melbourne's as well. So. It'd be a first round, like even if it was an end of first round.
I'm a huge fan of Draper's. I think he's
Me too.
A bit of a heart and soul spiritual leader of the group. So I'd be no. The answer is no.
You hold him?
Yep.
Perfect. Outstanding. All right. Should Carlton, this has been up for the last couple of days, should they have a conversation with Tom DeConey and get a definitive answer on his intention?
Yes. Whether or not they need to make that public is another question, but I think he's already told them, hasn't he?
I'm a firm believer in that even if he has decided to go and said to Carlton, I am going to leave, that it should not make one iota of difference to how Carlton play him. He should still be playing in the team.
And it shouldn't make any difference for him, but he's a young guy who's got this huge... He clearly doesn't want to go. Because he's playing like he doesn't want to go. But he's playing like he is going, he doesn't want to go. So whatever he's doing, he needs to... Someone needs to... Vossi needs to walk up to him and say, mate... Like they did with Buddy Franklin, I think Jordan Lewis doing. We're not interested in whether you go or not. We just want you to play your best footy.
And win the flag.
Walk out at the end of the year if, in fact, you decide to go. That's fine. We can deal with that then.
What is also hurting, and it's not necessarily anyone's fault, but Pittonet and the team, fine. DeConing having to play more forward because there's no Mackay. Michael Voss is just trying to search for any type of combination which can give them the oomph to end the year with players missing. And DeConing is better as a one-out ruckman.
Yeah, he is. But Carlton are better if DeConing plays well out of the forward line. I can't cop the he can't play forward nonsense. I've read it. I've seen it. I've heard it. Blokes have texted me that. No, I've seen him play forward, play him out of the goal square.
But is that when he pushes forward?
No, it's when he was a kid. When he was 19 and 20, he looked to me like he was going to be
a forward. Okay.
Young forward. So he hasn't forgotten how to play forward. All you got to do is put your hand up and run.
I'll take your word for it, Gerard.
Okay.
The Zach Butters signature, is it the most important in Port Adelaide history?
I'll do it, Jono. I'd have to think about that. Yes.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. And a transition time, Ken Hinkley on the way out, Josh Carr in. It's not till the end of next year where the contract is over, and clearly they're throwing everything, but he is.
We're talking arguably the best player in the competition. We're talking arguably the best player they've had in their history. He's in that league.
He is.
And I know that Choco won a flag with them and there were great players there, but he would be up there with their best.
When he plays at his best, they played his best.
Yeah.
He's a tough little bugger, and he's classy. He's got the best of both worlds. And again, I say this a lot about non-Victorian teams. And Gerard, because of the work we're lucky enough to have, we probably watch more football than a lot of other just footy fans who are solely focused on their teams. If he ended up in Melbourne, if he ended up in a Melbourne team, there would be people going, I can't believe how good Zach Butters is. He is a freak.
Yeah. Well, I tend to watch every game every weekend. I miss the odd one when, there's a crossover with the game I'm doing, and I get a chance to catch up with them. But, I see enough of Port Adelaide to know that bloke is, I think David Parkman used to say that the great players, they have 2 average games, 3 average games a year. Well, he's in that zone. I mean, an average game for him is a good game for most.
I reckon there was a game. If it wasn't last year, it was 2023. It was a Friday night game in the teeming rain against Melbourne.
Yeah.
And it's one of the best games I've ever seen a player play.
Yeah.
He wheeled them home. He kicked a late goal.
Yes.
He was going up against a midfield, Petrarca and Oliver, Viney, Brayshaw, Gawn led it, obviously. And he just stood up, and that's when I realised that this kid was a freak. Can Brodie Grundy do enough in the next 7 weeks to be named the All-Australian Ruckman?
I doubt it, but he should be in the squad if he continues this form. In fact, if he continues this form, he may well, because his last month has been off the charts.
We are seeing a renaissance when it comes to the Ruckman. Gawn is gone. Sherry's having an outstanding year.
Yeah.
English is not to his All-Australian year, but has had a pretty good year. Grundy has started slowish, but has been great. Luke Jackson's been really, really good.
What have they all got in common? They're ground ball players.
Yeah.
They're ground
they
ball
get around
ruckmen.
that, yeah.
get around it. They get their own clearances. I mean, the hit out is the most overrated stat in the game.
Well, if you're hitting it out and the opposition get it, then
Well,
it's
that's
even
right.
doubling.
I mean, that's to advantage. It has to disadvantage. It's like, to me, give me a ruckman like Nat Nui, who, when he got up really high, he hit out. It was a hit out to real advantage. They used to score more off his hit outs to advantage than any other ruckman. And he got his own clearances. Never got any raps for his own clearances. This is way before champion data was accepted by the free world. And, when he was first put in the All-Australian side, there was hell to pay. But no one actually understood champion data and how to read it. And his clearance work was completely underrated back then.
Will Fremantle persist with the 2 rucks into September?
Yes.
Do you think it's a good idea?
Yes.
Okay. GWS, well, last year's late game Demons, remember they had both Sydney and Brisbane beat and they played in grand finals. Will it motivate or hinder them?
Give me
in
that
September?
question again.
Well, last year's late game Demons for the Giants.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
Motivate or hinder them? Will it be an issue?
Won't be a factor.
Won't be a factor?
No.
They should look back on last year.
It was a factor in pre-season.
Yeah.
But it won't be a factor come September.
Well, the Gold Coast Suns handle the moment. And from that, I mean from this Friday. This is history.
Yeah, I think they'll handle the moment.
Mm-hmm.
They may not be good enough, though. I mean, the side they're playing is on top of the ladder. They're premiership favourites.
True. This Friday night is where it starts.
Yeah.
But handling the moment is every single game. This Friday night, I think, is the biggest game in their history.
Probably is.
And then the week later, it's probably going to be the biggest game in their history.
Yeah.
And it's going to be all the way until
Just because you
they
lose,
do
though,
lock
it
it in.
doesn't mean it's a fail.
No, it doesn't.
I
It
mean,
doesn't. A failure if they allow it to permeate towards the back end of the
Yeah.
year.
I mean, if they don't make the finals, that's a fail.
They'll make the 8.
They'll make the 8.
That-
But if
I
they don't,
agree.
it's a big fail.
I think they will make the 8. Western Bulldogs, do they need an informed Liam Jones to compete in September?
That would absolutely help. I think they could get there without it, as in compete. But to win it, I think he's part of the picture.
I don't think he has to play this week. They're playing Adelaide.
Yep.
Hawthorn.
Okay, let's go.
Can Will Day's return push them over the premiership edge?
Not just Will Day. I think it'll need Sicily and Will Day and maybe Lewis to come back, or Kel Shadir, but he's certainly part of the picture. If he just came in now with what they've got, geez, I'll go close still.
He is. I think he's their best player.
Yeah, he is.
And Mitch Lewis is important. Sicily back, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think if Will Day plays,
Yes.
and the reporting is that he's going to be back by round 20,
Yeah.
it gives. And Hawthorn's ability. Now, Josh Weddle hurts. Okay,
Big-
so we
big
haven't
out.
really got the full extreme of the Josh Weddle, and I feel he won't be back.
No, I agree with that.
And that sucks. But he's the type of X factor, of course. But, geez, they haven't lost. To be able to keep in contact with the top 4 without them really doing a huge amount of damage to their top 4 abilities, or their double chance, is huge.
If Sicily comes back, can Battle play more the Waddle? They're not the exact same player, but can he push up to that half-back line?
Well, he can, but I just don't think
He's still playing a wing.
when Weddle is playing his best footy, he's bouncing the
He's a
ball, he's
different
taking the
unit,
game
isn't he?
on, and he can
Yeah.
get it inside 50. I'm not saying I don't think Battle can do it to the same level.
Fair enough.
I also think the Battle Barras pairing, as I said earlier, I think Sicily's carried an injury for a lot of the year, but I also think that the chemistry of which is so good in the inside 50 for Hawthorn took a little hammering with 2 key position players coming in the off-season. Frost and Sicily had it down pat last year when they played their best footy. Now, I'm not saying they shouldn't have got Barras in Battle, because clearly that would be incorrect, and adding talent to your list is always the best thing to do. But I think it's taken a little longer to gel than I think some people might have given it credit for.
Okay, we'll find out at the end of the year whether it's gelled completely or not.
Patrick Dangerfield, will his body hold up for an entire finals campaign?
I would think so. Yeah, they're handling him well. There's no signs of it. Clearly with soft tissue, they can hit anybody anytime. You only have to look at Papley, and then there was a second-year player in Lawler, first-year player. I mean, they can hit anybody. Doesn't matter how old you are.
I said this on Sunday Crunch Time earlier in the year. Geelong deserve a huge amount of credit. I think the Jack Martin situation where he's now playing at half back, which he
Saw him
barely
on the TV.
ever
Is he
played.
back this week?
Yeah, no, he played last week.
Okay.
Yeah, and he looks good as a half back flanker.
Yeah, well, he's always going to.
But their management of players, and Patrick Dangerfield is at the top of that, not just in game, but during the week. month to month, and I think you go back to that 22 year where he clearly wanted to play a little earlier than they let him. Yep. They got him into a full pre-season in the middle of the year, and they ended up winning a flag.
Had to lock him in a cage for a while.
Now, Kane's not here, and I know his thoughts on it, but will the 3 forwards work in September for Adelaide?
I'm confident they will. Mm-hmm. I've never been one to sort of agree with Kane that they can't work. I think Thilthorpe is such a good player that he can have an impact. Darcy Fogarty has been poor for a fair period of time, but showed a fair bit on the weekend, so that's a good sign. And Tex just does a job.
He does.
And Tex has got the magic. He's got the skill to, I think, impact. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean he's got the three of them are going to get them across the line and kick 12 goals between them, but Thilthorpe is clearly the best second ruck forward in the competition. Is he a better ruckman than Darcy? I think he probably is.
He is. I don't think Darcy should ever be in the ruck.
No, that's a good point.
I would actually send Lobb into the ruck for those little minutes. I know defensively they have their questions, and clearly, but yeah, Lobb's played as a ruckman in a past life. The thing with Adelaide is, I think they'll fall just a smidge short of the top teams, but I don't think it'll be the 3 forwards that's a reason. And I also think with Isaac Rankin spending more time inside 50 in the last month or so, that balances up the lack of pressure when the ball goes to leave.
Probably needs to spend even more time there now because of Rochelle being out.
Agreed.
So I'm not sure who comes in for Rochelle, but Murphy hasn't set the world on fire.
He hasn't.
So I'm not sure he survives.
Is it too difficult? We love Logan Morris. Is it going to be too difficult for Brisbane to go back-to-back without Joe Danaher? Is it going to be a moment where we're going to go...
No, I don't think so. No. Joe, I think, was brilliant. Mm-hmm. If they can win it, they can win it with what they got. They don't absolutely need Joe, given how well that Morris has come on. Gardner can play forward. He can play back. I think more the issue is, can the midfield get it done to the same level? Because, I mean, Joe was exceptional, but everyone was exceptional that day. In a really tight struggle, I think the midfield is the one that needs to, dominate if they're going to win it.
A couple of weeks ago on Sunday Crunch Time, Scotty Lucas, Josh Jenkins and myself did the most important player at each of the top 9 teams. Right. And for me at Brisbane, it was Eric Hipwood. Because if he has a really good September, and there's some really good Eric Hipwood, and there's some really bad Eric Hipwood. If he has a really good September, and by that I mean if they play 3 games and he kicks 10 goals, I think they'll win the flag. Now, if you look at the Western Bulldogs game at Gather Round, he didn't get near it in the first half, and then he just goes bang in the second half, and it's a totally different team.
He's an electric player when he goes. We know that.
Big thing for me is Hipwood. I think and I got to give them credit. I'll mention Hawthorn staying close enough to a top 4 spot without Will Day being out there. They're top 2 right now, and they haven't played their best footy. We sort of bemoan the way they probably hadn't played a great deal of, and even on the weekend. Lucky Neal put it on the agenda. They had 32 tackles. They had 28 against the Giants. That high pressure, real have a crack at it in the trenches, which is obviously a big part of their game. Hasn't necessarily been there, yet they're still winning. And that makes them dangerous.
They've got an upside. Loman's got another 3 levels to get back to his very best. It depends on whether Lockie gets tagged or not. He can go up another level.
McCluggage is having a
Cluggage can't go up another level.
He can't.
He can't go up another level. But they got so many wild cards up there.
They have.
That Rayner Man, he could just turn it on.
Going on the road is not one issue for them. They went on the road all of last September pretty much and got it done. Just quickly off the text, Harley Reid isn't even the best read in Perth.
Yeah, well, that's
it's probably a big Murphy who's had a really good year. A couple of people pointing at Nazaya. All right, Collingwood.
This is your best. This
is Sam Watson's best, and it's a really good question. Do they need Jordan De Goey to win the flag?
No.
They can win it without
Jordan
De Goey. Yeah. It sounds ridiculous in isolation, but I think they can win it without him. And he is a star, a superstar.
Yeah, he's an unbelievably good player, but they are so stocked, and this is where, I tried to say this the other day, where Sydney are looking like, to me, that Ollie Florence on the draft, it looks like that. But they haven't got anywhere near the level of reserves and talent available to come into the side. I mean, Tom Mitchell only played his first game this week.
Yeah.
Tom Mitchell would be straight into the Sydney Swans side. And I say this, in answering your question, De Goey is just another one of about 10 mids that are all top liners.
I love the chemistry. And it's what Collingwood have done.
If he comes in, I suspect he plays forward.
He will.
Yeah.
He will. And I love Jordan De Goey. He's a superstar. He's a finals performer. We put a huge amount of emphasis on standing up. And he's a star. I legitimately think they are the only team that can win a premiership missing one of their A-graders. And he is an A-grade footballer, regardless of which way you carve it up.
Just go back to the second last goal, I think it was 2 years ago when they won the flag.
Huge moment. Stand up. It's remarkable that we can get this end of the year. They're 2.5 games in front, and Jordan De Goey
hasn't played.
Not even, And he's only played, I don't have the exact number in front of me, but he's only played about 12, 13 games because he missed a lot of last year as well since that premiership.